Hello and welcome. This is the first video in a series of 5 dedicated to the creation of scatter and line plots in KIWI ExploreLive. I will cover basic settings, such as the selection of the data source, selection of the variables that will be used for the X and the Y axis, the selection of the style of the plot. I will also cover the options that control the axis settings, and I will also demonstrate the interactive features that are offered by the scatter and line plots in ExploreLive. I have already uploaded a data set. This is a pharmacokinetics data set called demo.csv. I've created a modified version of that data set, which I call PK samples. In this data set, I've excluded the dosing record by providing a subset expression, SAMP equal 1, SAMP being a variable identifying the dosing and sample records. We will use this data set for the creation of scatter plots. Scatter and line plots can be created by using the plot, scatter plot submodule. It looks like that. The main panel where the plots are represented takes most of the real estate on the screen. On the upper right, the data panel is displayed and it allows you to select the source data set. All the imported data sets, all the modified data sets, and the pool data set would be listed here. So in my case, I only have my imported data and my PK sample data set, which I create by modifying the demo.csv. So I'm going to use PK sample. Then I'm going to go in the lower part of the application in the basic setting panel. I will define my X-axis variable by clicking in this drop-down field. And you can either scroll down in the list or type the variable of interest. So in my case, I want the TSFD, so the time since first dose. No plot will be shown until I actually select both my X and Y variable. I will select the DV variable, which contains the observed concentrations. And as soon as I validate the selection, the plot is generated and displayed in the plot area. By default, we create a scatter plot. And if you want to switch to a line plot, you need to go into this field and select the join line option. Typically, line plots are not necessarily super meaningful in a PK data set, like a population data set. To create a spaghetti plot, you will need to use a stratification feature that will be covered in another video. Another type of style is the symbol and joined line, which makes the scatter design and the line design. Finally, there is an option of not showing the data. This in itself is not necessarily a super useful feature, but it becomes very useful when you want to summarize the data and use the central tendency functionality. This will be covered in another video. I will return to the symbol design. Now I'm going to switch to the functionality that allow you to control the axis settings. So if you want to zoom in a particular portion of the data, let's say the first 48 hours of this data set, you must provide a minimum value as well as a maximum value. You see that by providing just a minimum, nothing really happened. If I provide just both a minimum and a maximum now, the axis range is modified. KIWI will add a little bit of margin on the left and on the right side of your selected interval. Again, if I remove the minimum value, KIWI will simply ignore the maximum value that was entered in this field. So again, you need to provide both minimum and maximum values. You can provide a custom axis title. It would be a little bit more meaningful than just the variable name. I'm going to switch to the y-axis variable to talk about the other fields of the x and the y-axis tab. I'm going to just enter y-axis title. This gets updated as you type. And I will switch my axis to a log scale, which is quite typical for pharmacokinetic data to evaluate your elimination. And you can see that ExploreLive will display a grid reference line on the major log, as well as on the intermediate values in between the logs. Note that if you provide some kind of axis limit that is not compatible with log scale, the plot will disappear and will be replaced by an error message. So I will just revert that back to something that will be valid for this data. The next field is a field that allows you to transform the data. So one of the most useful transformation is an exponentiation of data that would have been stored on the log scale. So let's say I'm going to use this log dv data, which is just the log value of the observed data. And back into the transformation function field, I'm going to type the exp function, which is the R function to exponentiate a value. And you can see that now the data has been back exponentiated and is exactly the value that was exactly the same plot that we observed with the DV versus TSFD. So exp is probably the transformation function you're going to use most often, but theoretically you can type any kind, any valid R function. So here I just use a sine function, which is completely irrelevant for these data, but you can see that the sign has been applied and all the data are now constrained between 0 and 1. I'm going to remove that information. I'm going to remove the log scale for now. And I will also remove the x-axis range. Why did my... Oh, yes, I know why. This looks like a log scale, but it's because my data is the log version. So I'm now going to demonstrate the interactive feature that the plot area offers. You can click on a data point, let's say this one, and ExploreLive will automatically provide you with some information about that data point. So not only does it become highlighted in the plot area in the selected data panel, which just appear when you clicked on the data point, we list the value of the y variable and the x variable. If you need more information, you can actually go in this field, show the following variable for the selected data, and you can select additional variables. Let's say the ID variable to identify the subject associated with this data point. If you have some kind of index variable to give you the position of this data point in the data set, you can use it. That's a typical variable that you want to display. You can keep on clicking on data points, and they will just keep on accumulating at the bottom of the table. You can also use or select data by area, and for that you need to click on the left button of your mouse, keep that button pressed, and then drag your mouse to create that little selection area. Then you unselect the button, and all these data points will be now selected and reported in the selected data panel. In this panel, you have you can see two different buttons. One is a button that will copy this little table to the clipboard, and you can paste it in Excel or any kind of text processor if you need to keep trace of that information. And the second button is a reset button that will essentially remove any selection in the plot area and will hide the selected data panel. So this covers the functionality, the interactive functionality of the plot panel. Additional feature of the scatter plot module are covered in additional videos. Thank you.